What if the secret to straight A's isn't talent, but adopting the mindset of elite athletes? The habits that allow LeBron to dominate on the court can also make you dominate the classroom. If studying more hasn't boosted your grade, or if additional tutoring hasn't given you good study habits, by now you could be falling behind without even realizing it. What you're doing now may be enough to get by, but it's not enough to get ahead. The good news, the difference between success and staying stuck is easier to fix than you think. The mindset of champions might be the missing ingredient to your academic success. Perhaps the secret to crushing your goals is hidden in how elite athletes train every day. Because you don't need to be a Lionel Messi, a Wayne Gretzky, or a Tom Brady to think like one. And that could change everything about your academic success by the end of this school year. In this video, I'll show you how to adopt 7 elite athlete mindsets, crush school, stress, and self-doubt. Let's dive in. The first habit of elite athletes is that they speak in definitives. They're very deliberate and intentional, saying, I will do this, I can, I am, versus what students often say, which is, I'll try, I think I can do this. The reason this is so essential is that definitives activate the RAS, or the reticular activation system, a part in your brain that aligns goals and resources. By activating the RAS, athletes look subconsciously for opportunities to achieve success. So if you start thinking, I will ace this test, I will earn that A, your brain will start looking for opportunities that you need to take in order to achieve the grades that you want. So command your brain for more action taking so that you rise to the top of your class. The second skill that elite athletes have is they ultimately understand the cost of inaction and invest in themselves religiously. For example, elite athletes invest in themselves because they know this is going to get a 100 times return on investment, and that not doing these things will ultimately cost them money. They invest in performance-based technologies in order to create longevity. For example, LeBron famously spends $1.5 million every year on his body, but that's a huge return on investment because he's able to earn about $47 million on the court, and that's not including the hundreds of millions he earns every year in investments and other opportunities. It's not about the money you spend, but the value you gain. So you may not have the money to invest in yourself like elite athletes, but what you should do is invest in yourself. Learn to read, learn new skills, practice good study habits, etc., so that you get down the road a huge return on investment that will ultimately allow you to succeed. In the mindset of elite athletes is they're driven by intrinsic motivation. Although these athletes are paid hundreds of millions of dollars, they don't get that money because they focus on that. What they do is they want to perform to the best of their abilities and be proud of yourself. Tom Brady was religiously focused on improving himself every day, and ultimately the accolades and championships came from that. John Wooden, the famous UCLA basketball coach, said that winning or success is ultimately a byproduct of hard work and effort. So what you need to do is stop comparing yourself to others, and ironically, stop focusing solely on that grade, but focus on the hard work, dedication, consistency, and all those other skills that will allow those high grades to happen. Fourth, elite athletes will set meaningful goals. They are focused, like I said before, on internal growth rather than external rewards, which again, sounds odd, but it ultimately works. But what athletes do is they know their why. Every time they step on the court for practice, training, or whatever, they have a meaningful goal, a purpose that drives them to stay at the top. So ultimately, what you need to do to the classroom is make goals for yourself. Stop waking up like it's an accident and going to class for no reason. What is your goal for studying well for this math test? What do you ultimately want to be when you grow up? If you have a why, it is going to give you a huge amount of motivation because you're working towards something rather than haphazardly walking through the school day. The fifth habit of elite athletes is they ultimately commit to things that are unenjoyable. For them, sports oftentimes isn't fun or just a game. They commit to things that are ultimately very boring, and they have a high tolerance for this. These boring elements include things like endless film sessions, training, and recovery. And it's a commitment that does the things that they must do, not just what they want to do. Every elite athlete wants to go out and play a game, but they also commit the dozens of hours before the game even starts to perform at their best. So for you, stop trying to be engaged all the time. Put your phone down. School will never be as exciting as League of Legends. Get used to it. It's hard, but the learning and the skills you develop in school will ultimately pay off in the long run. Commit to things that are boring so you have more time and more money for things that are fun down the road. The sixth one kind of follows from the fifth, but elite athletes rarely complain. Elite athletes have been dropped from the starting team. They have to deal with injuries, bad coaches, bad management, you name it. But the big thing is they don't have a victim mentality, and professionals get on with it. They may not be happy, but they ultimately have an internal locus of control, which means that they don't blame others. They think about what they can control and stick to the process. But what you have to do is honestly shut up and just get the work done. No more complaining, be like a pro athlete, and grind your way through the really unfair parts of high school. Lastly, and this might be most important to you because you and elite athletes experience the same thing, stress. It's just that elite athletes know how to leverage it a little bit better. What elite athletes do is they move away from threat appraisals and they think of them as challenging appraisals. The pros, just like you, get butterflies and performance anxiety before every game. But the difference is where so many students see these signals as a level of their incompetence, you have to start looking at it as a challenge and look to channel that stress and anxiety in the right way. Athletes will use techniques like visualization, breathing, mindfulness to tell them that it's go time. And these feelings are ultimately fuel to do what they need to do. So what you have to do for school is to ultimately step out of your comfort zone and realize that stress is probably a good thing. It's just telling your body that this is important. So instead of worrying and stressing and having huge anxiety attacks because this 97% proves that you're not perfect, look, just like elite athletes, to leverage that stress and see it as a challenge to see how well you've studied or how hard you've worked rather than a mark on your identity. And the seventh thing that elite athletes have is they are strivers, not reachers. What I mean by that is elite athletes never feel like they've ultimately reached their potential. They're so self-aware that they realize they love the process and love the journey that they're on rather than the destination that they're getting to. They get more of a rush from chasing, and that really keeps them going. Tom Brady is famous for saying that his favorite ring is the next one. And they ultimately have peace that they'll never be perfect, but they are always chasing it. So this is, I think, a real great summation of the problems that a lot of students face. You're not perfect. You never will be. Get over it. So the idea here is keep striving to be better. Just because you're not going to be perfect doesn't mean that you can't strive for perfection and see how good you ultimately are. If you feel like this video has added value to your life, please consider giving a subscribe down below. It would be the highlight of my teaching career. I want to thank Sam Martin at Peak Performance on YouTube. I actually found this video, which I'll link in the description below, which talked about these exact 7 mindsets that elite athletes have. And I just decided to modify it for how it can help you academically at school. So if you have trouble with your mindset and this video has helped, you might want to consider clicking on this playlist here where I go over other mindsets and lessons that I think will help you in your journey through high school. So thanks, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.